Welcome back to the Publisher Podcast, the Michael D. TV show, and the Author Spotlight. Very excited about our next guest. He's written a great work of fiction here called Junkworld, the Ballad of Leroy Brown. And why I'm so excited about this, this is a book of fiction that's sure to delight fiction readers because it's got a flair for the terrestrial in a machine world. And the author says he was inspired by real steel and battle bots. And maybe he'll tell us a little bit about that. If you've ever heard the term Rock'em Sock'em Robots, the movie, or Rocky with Robots, Junkworld is a planet for discarded machines, and fiction lovers everywhere are sure to make this book destined to be a classic novel in the science fiction space. Michael Stangeland from South Dakota, welcome. What inspired Junkworld?
Well, there are two halves to the story. One half being what you mentioned, and I will get back to that because that did provide a core element, and it provides the most direct. There's the most direct line. When I talk about, okay, here's what drove it, here's what come from. That's it. But that what sparked that inspiration came from. Sometimes when you're online, you're surfing various corners of the internet, you'll come across, things people have created, these settings, for whatever reason, and so at one of those times I came across, this person had created a setting, which was basically a junk world planet where robots that had been thrown out were just, trying to make a new life for themselves, and that inspired me to create the character of Leroy Brown. I mean, it initially started with the title character himself. And I created this backstory that's similar to the backstory that he has in the book, where he is this, military robot that, he's not needed by the military anymore. So he's been turned into a, arena fighter. And it all came from my love of this BattleBots show. To a lesser degree, you have the Real Steel, which is the robot boxing movie, and BattleBots especially, which especially since the the revival back in, I think it's 2015, I've been a real big fan of. It's currently ongoing. It feels like it's expanding, could hopefully go on a long while. So, and it is a sort of a funny thing because I don't know what specifically I can say because I don't want to get into spoilers, and there's a lot of details in it that, if I say two things, say too much say the wrong thing or too much thing, it can go in.
Well, people are loving the book, and the author Emmy Kruger that wrote Dust and Blood, the supernatural Western, says Junkworld is a riveting read that teases the reader's adventure. The future world and battles Stangeland creates are beyond epic. Get into a little bit of the inspiration. Where did this come from? Because, in the synopsis of the book, you talk about the top dog's a tyrant determined to conquer all of Junkworld, and the top dog demands Leroy's capture for lessons unknown only to himself. And Leroy just wants to go home. So, there's a lot there, and a lot of twists and turns throughout the book. And we might mention it's a long read because people are getting captured in, all the way through in the verses and page 100, 150. And a lot of twists and turns with this storyline. Give us a little insight around the inspiration.
Well, it kind of flows from, the characters and the setting, and in some ways I see there being three kind of books together, and it may be odd to think about, given it, but in some ways at the core of this book there's kind of like a sports story in there, given that it starts with, okay, this is a robot that, well, he starts out as an arena fighter. It opens with this setting, the combat setting, and he's trying to go back to that, and there's certain fights in there that lead through it, but then around that you've got a mix of an adventure story and a military story, because he may be he may be a combat robot with, I mean, an arena fighter when the story, but he is built around, he is at his core a military bot. There's a line in there where he says, I'm a military bot. I was built to win battles. I was designed to win wars. Not exactly that line, but that semblance of who he is at his core. And so there's different layers in that sense of how this comes out from. And so it kind of, the elements, they flowed from what I'm putting together, and where do things need to go.
Well, you talk about the game that gave you inspiration. There was a game that didn't last long, but you certainly got inspiration for this. People are talking about AI. They're looking at AI, and they're looking at the future, when the robots and the machines actually do take over. So, I mean, I could see this being a movie as you're out there speaking, as you're out there doing book signings and things like that. Some of the fans' questions in the early feedback from readers is, will this be a series? Will there be a sequel? They want to know, Michael.
The most solid answer I can give is a maybe. I'm not going to say that it's a one-off, but I also don't know whether there will be more books in the future. Because on the one hand, I mean, as it is, I mean, I think it's a good compact story. There's things that could be built upon, but at the same time, it wraps things up. But on the other hand, I can definitely imagine the possibility of there being, more books in this series. It's, well, turning it into a series. So it's very much a maybe. And the thing is, I have other ideas that I've got that I'm working on. So, and some of them which, lend themselves more naturally, or they come with the idea of, yes, there's definitely going to be more books. So I do have some ideas, but for one reason or another, I can't necessarily jump into them right away, because either, they need work, or questioning, okay, is this an idea that actually works well for the setting, or is it something that be, so I don't know.
Well, you definitely put a lot of thought into the character development and the way you keep the story moving, because you went from writing as a hobby in college to taking writing seriously. I mean, this is a 300-page book, and the fact that you cranked this thing out and you've created a real cult following around Junkworld, the Ballad of Leroy Brown, that's available everywhere: Walmart.com, Target.com, of course, Amazon, of course, BarnesandNoble.com. And so for some bookshop, I mean, just everywhere you Google it, it's available, hardcover, paperback, ebook. We're excited about the audiobook, and curious if you're going to hire talent to do the audiobook reading, or, as I would recommend, I would want your voice reading this audiobook for people.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because, I mean, ideal situation would be that if I were to do an audiobook, I'd definitely try and do the recording for myself. It might take some figuring out to make sure I get it done right, but yeah, because
grab a mic, and you got about 7 days worth of work ahead of you there, because when you get into it, you're really going to get into the characters, and I know you're going to be projecting your theater voice, and you're going to feel like you're in the movie theater watching the movie, listening to you narrate the characters, no doubt. So that'd be a lot of fun. But I got to ask, this was a question on social media from one of the readers: what was the toughest part about the book, and did you ever get stuck, and how did you break through?
Well, I guess initially the toughest part was when the initial time, the initial go around of trying to get this thing published, because going through Beyond is, because initially, after I got it completed, I did try going through the normal publishing process. You find an agent, the agent, and nothing came of that. So this book I kind of sat on for a while, but then later and more recently, I was looking at other opportunities and eventually found Beyond. And so I'm, working with Beyond now, and it's fun. It's, because I actually do have other books that I have written to wonder, are in a state.
Mm-hmm.
So It's
Well,
probably
it was a lot of fun working with you when Tim Jacobs, connected us. I just said, this is a cool book. This is a guy that's done a lot of work on Junkworld, the Ballad of Leroy Brown. It would be a lot of fun to help you bring this book to market. And, a lot of people take a year to get your book to market. And I felt like, there were some tweaks and back and forth on the cover and the interior, but it was a fun process. We got the press release going out, so we got the news media talking about you. They're creating some buzz. So overall, was a good experience for you too?
yeah. I mean, it's. I'm definitely excited and looking forward to the book being available. It finally being able to get into people's hands, and
Mhm.
seeing
When
seeing.
when you have your first case of books show up on your door and you hold that baby in your
Yes,
hand, I mean,
when I can hold it in my hand, physical copy, and it'll be
exactly.
finally taken this manuscript that was on my computer, and it is finally in the position where I have a physical copy I can put on my bookshelf.
That's so cool.
I can,
That is so cool. So what was your main inspiration as we close it out here? I mean, was there a family member or a pet at home that would watch you at the computer and say, "Hey, it's 2 a.m. You're not done. Stay at the computer till 4 a.m." or what?
you mean for getting it to this place?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's actually my grandma. I kind of make a brief reference to it in the acknowledgments, but I've been working on this for a while, and I've got a situation where I do live with my grandma kind of as an in-home caretaker thing. And
Mhm,
so she did notice. I mean, she
mhm.
was aware, not much of the details, but of me, doing this
Wow.
writing thing. And so somewhere along the line, noticing that, I hadn't actually gotten anything published yet,
Mhm.
she began asking me
Don't you love that?
questions about, the process, learning more. And somewhere in the look, she asked, was there some way she could help me make this happen? And
Mhm.
so that right there was the critical thing that took it from just trying to go through the normal process.
Awesome, grandma. I want to say thanks, grandma.
Yes,
That's awesome because she recognizes talent. And Michael, I'm glad that she encouraged you to pursue your dreams, follow your dreams. We'll be holding copies here. By the time you see this video, you can grab your copy today, have it land on your doorstep tomorrow. And Michael can sign this for you. Just follow him. Just follow me. Reach out because when he's speaking or doing a media or a book signing, you can reach out to us and we will get you in touch with him for interviews. And so it's called Junkworld, the Ballad of Leroy Brown. It's a battle of the ages for those of you that are into the machine warfare to figure out who is going to win, which way is this going to go. And the game is always on. It never ends. Is it going to be the top dog? Is it going to be Leroy Brown? And so, I mean, this is exciting, and I would love to see this become a movie. So, author Michael Stangeland, congratulations on Junkworld, the Ballad of Leroy Brown.
thank
Great job. Get it now everywhere books are sold. You can just Google it and boom, all the websites will pull up. Take your pick, have it drop shipped, and grab 2 or 3 because you want to grab some for your friends. If you're in a reading group, if you're in a fiction club, this is a great book to introduce because it's 300 pages of goodness and it will keep you turning and it will be a lot of fun. And I just can't wait to see everybody dressing up as Leroy Brown. I mean, this is going to be great for Halloween. So, Michael, thanks for joining us on the Michael D Show. It's been epic. It's been fun. And we'll talk to you soon.